We're here today. This is Political Payne, my first foray into a real interview show. And I've reached out to Jacob Town, co-owner with his wife, Brooke, of the Spoon Trade restaurant in Grover Beach and Grover Beach Sourdough, of course, right? The bakery.
Right.
And let's hold off on the latest announcement because I'm very curious about that. But I've been meaning to reach out to you for a while now, Jacob, about for an interview specifically about how you as a business owner have adapted to the COVID world, the post-COVID world, as an owner of a restaurant. And so if you want to give a bit of your background about, when you started Spoon Trade and then, included the Grover Beach before you talk about what coronavirus did to your business there in Grover Beach.
Yeah, August will be our 5-year anniversary. So August 15th. Which is kind of why we're making this transition now, so kind of have a grand reopening on that day. The bakery opened 2 years ago, so we just had our 2-year anniversary in May. We had a beautiful restaurant operating, an amazing feedback in the public. It was just our vision in the world to have a dinner restaurant and serve food on plates and give quality service. And that has changed dramatically at this point.
Yeah. And your style is kind of elevated American cuisine. Is that what you would call it? Or that's what I call it. What do you call it?
Well, that's what it's evolved into. Grover Beach kind of has dictated where we've gone with that. Mm-hmm. When we first opened up, I would consider it being a fine casual new American restaurant. Okay. Now we are I would say, like you said, an upscale American diner. Finding things that were really familiar to people and then just making it a little bit better than mama might make it,
Yes, most definitely. I remember you, the first time I met you, I was in the middle of your chicken and waffles, your sourdough waffles. And you said, how is it? I think all I could muster is I just went like that.
Right on.
It was incredible.
Definitely our claim to fame dish. We kind of looked demographically when we were opening, and nobody was doing anything like that. A prolific thing in the world, kind of like deep dish pizza, meatloaf, and ramen, kind of the things that we serve now. Chicken and waffles was our first dish that we kind of put out there that we knew was going to kill it, and nobody else did it. So
definitely, and it comes with kimchi, which is a plus for me anyway. But so then you expanded. When did Grover Beach open again? And sourdough? Go ahead.
Yeah, May 2018.
That's right.
We opened up. People were asking for bread, and we could barely make enough for the restaurant to really survive. Selling out of bread every night, not being able to make as much, and we just felt like there was demand for it. So the building across the street is owned by a couple that frequent the restaurant. So we just inquired about an empty space over there. Turned out it was a Papa John's like 2 years prior. Okay. So it had the gas lines, floor drains, grease traps, and all that stuff in there. It actually had all the proper flooring and everything as well. So we basically just plugged and played some equipment in there, turned on the lights, and started baking bread.
Well, that sounds great. So now we get to the the microscopic elephant in the room, and that's coronavirus, COVID-19. Kind of took a lot of people by surprise. California was the first state to shut down. What was that like? You could talk about professionally the decisions you had to make, maybe some of your own inner emotional, landscape and experience, what that must have been like to see your clothes. Go ahead.
Try to put it in a nutshell, at least. I mean, I could talk for 3 hours about it, probably.
I bet.
We basically got news that we weren't allowed to serve sit down at all, and that night we kind of went home scratching our heads and not sure where to go from there. The next day we came in basically with our tails between our legs, not knowing exactly what to do, a little bit scared. We had a few orders already pre-ordered for that night. Some people had ordered a couple to-go orders. So we had something on the books. I called all the staff and told them all to stay home, basically thinking, I think this is it for us for right now. And that night, my wife was answering the phone and I was getting this few to-go orders ready, and the phone rang. And then it rang again. And then it rang again. So Brooke and I were scrambling. I was turning on the fryer. I turned the grill on, and I went and got saute pans out, and $1,500 in sales later, which you can only imagine selling
Wow.
$1,500 worth of food. We did that between the two of us. Uh, so
Whoa.
so the next day, we called the staff back and said, "Hey, I think that we can do this. I think that we can do to go food." So two or three more people came on board, and for a few weeks straight, it was us and two or three people, two cooks and a dishwasher, um, supplying the community with to go food, and it was something that we were able to do overnight. But because of the people, because of that demand in that first moment, we kept the lights on. And if we
Wow.
hadn't kept the lights on, we wouldn't be here right now. Our restaurant probably would have closed. Um, but since we were able to drop our labor down so far and then still keep a steady flow of revenue, we were able to start breaking even, if not bringing a little bit of cash flow in that few week period.
Wow.
So there was, I would say, it was a good 2 months of just trying to get a little bit more business, maybe get a staff or two more on. But we just basically realized that we're going to stock the shelves with to-go boxes and start creating dishes that were a lot more travel friendly. So, the fresh seared ahi tuna packed in a box and traveling 10 minutes might not be the best dish, but
Mhm.
a tuna casserole or meatloaf dinner kind of a thing was what we started designing. So our first initial phase was, how do we make our to-go food, I wouldn't say as delicious, but how do we create dishes that travel well, because now we're not designing it to go on a plate. So again, forward thinking, after you get home, is this going to be worth it? So having your best foot forward, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there scrambling just to get food in boxes to figure out what to do. But if people get home and it's not good, they're not going to come back again. So we're always on that page of setting the bar for quality, but anticipating all the little details that go along with it.
Wow. So that's something I've heard from business owners that I know is like this whole situation. It's either you're either going to adapt or you're not. What about the response from your community, your following? I know they're. I mean, I'm a huge fan of your food. I know there's a lot of people who live a lot closer by. I'm, about 20 minutes away in Santa Maria. I know there are people within delivery range who are big fans of yours. Were you hearing from a lot of regulars right away? Did you do a lot of like social media outreach? How did that work?
What, for delivery specifically?
Yeah, yeah, to
Yeah,
keep it going after the closure.
yeah, and we did that just for a couple weeks. Just finding other options to get our food to people was important to us. We didn't get a big response from delivery. I was doing one or two a night, which isn't a lot, especially if they're $25 or $50 orders. There was a few, $300 or $400 orders that really make it worth it. Um, but
So it was a
if
lot of
we do,
pickup orders.
but lots and lots of pickup orders. So
Oh, okay.
here's another thing. So one of the biggest factors that we realized after being closed for a long time was that we can do the similar amount of sales in a night doing only to go food that we would being open as a business.
Hmm.
That demand wouldn't be there if every restaurant was still open, but that demand was there because all the restaurants were closed. So, for example, if we do $3,000 in sales in to-go food, that was a decent Friday night sometimes, and that's not a big dollar amount for a restaurant. That goes to show how slow we can be, in the regular hours, anyways. But if we can do that without four servers, two hosts, a bartender, and a dishwasher, that's a tremendous amount of money. So we realized that people picking up food um, were saving us money. So when we reopened, our menu prices went up 20% for the cost of service. We realized that we weren't charging enough for what we were offering when people were being served. So we then started offering a 15% discount for pickup orders. So
Hey,
incentivizing pickup by offering a discount, but at the same time, it's just not paying full price. So delivery and dine-in were full price, and then pickup and curbside were 15% off. But that's another thing that I think a lot of restaurants are noticing now, is that the cost of service was way higher than they ever factored into their menu prices.
And I'm guessing that you can't have as many people in your lobby eating, right? You have to space out folks who were indoors eating. Obviously, we'll get to that in a second, not now. But so what you just couldn't have the same number of people at each inside your building, right?
Exactly. We had less than half of our seating.
Okay. And so now that, we just had this announcement a couple days ago that I don't think, did SLO County get included in the reclose?
I don't know about the second wave of it, but yes, SLO County is included, and all the indoor dining is now closed.
Okay. So,
So people are getting real creative with their patios and their sidewalks and stuff.
so that, yeah. And you guys already have a nice patio, but, I don't know if you're able to expand it outside of that and have more tables.
Well, we actually just sent plans over to the city this morning, and had our concrete guy come out. There's a big section of property that's all grass in front of the restaurant, that we're going to hopefully have turned into an outside additional patio as well. So another 6 tables.
Wow. So you're putting in investment just so you can keep going in the midst of this crisis, because it kind of seems obvious at this point it's not going away.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, we'll talk about it a little later, but we're changing our whole entire business model to rotate around more pickup, casual, fast counter service, style stuff. So expanding the patio and still being able to sit people out there will generate more revenue for us.
Okay. Yeah. So I just saw that. That's part of why I was spurred to reach out. Is you're closing temporarily, right? And
Yeah,
is this to include the redesign of the patio area? Is there other stuff going on? You're consolidating the bakery and the restaurant now. Is that right?
yeah. So we've been, to most restaurants, over the past couple weeks, they're being open. If not, just to walk by and look inside, see what everybody's doing. Um, we decided over a week ago to close our inside dining.
Mm-hmm.
So a week prior to being told to close, we pulled the plug on it already. And the reason for that being is there's just too many inconsistencies, with mask wearing, traveling through the restaurant, all these different factors. And every other place was playing by their own rules. And I just mean that it's site specific. You have to do what feels right. You have to do what feels comfortable for the people coming in. If the people inside feel comfortable, then you're doing the right thing for you. But when I require somebody to walk 4 feet from the front door to their table wearing a mask, and then 2 tables away, Joe Payne gets up to go to the bathroom and he's had a couple beers, but he's not wearing his mask, I'm a hypocrite and I'm wrong. So in that situation, I feel like it made me look bad, even though it wasn't my action. For
Yeah.
me, being the police in the hospitality industry didn't feel right. So we directed everything to go outside. But then we also realized that we have the opportunity now to develop a concept that is fast casual, a little bit more counter service, really to go oriented, and generate a little bit more revenue by being a bakery and cafe, versus a bakery or a restaurant and a bakery. So now we're going to be open from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. We're going to do breakfast, lunch, and early dinner. Everything that we offer at the restaurant, including our brunch menu, for breakfast. So it'll be brunch 7 days a week, our dinner/lunch menu for a whole day, and then we'll be closed at 6 every day. Basically, you'll walk up to the counter, order all the things that you want. You'll get a number or call your name. You can wait outside if it's a pickup order, or you can go sit at your table if you're dining on the patio. So we're going to make it pretty fast casual, one-stop shop. So we're going to have an espresso machine, do coffee drinks. So basically, full bakery, full restaurant, and kind of a coffee shop too. So
And a coffee shop. Wow.
so
Cool.
meatloaf, bologna, fried chicken, ramen, tuna casserole, all of our classic kind of American things. And I would kind of put it in the category of, say, like, a Bob's Well Bread or like a Tartine Bakery, but an American diner version of that. So, well, our bread loaves aren't rustic and round, and our bread loaves are loaves. They're made for slicing. They're made for going in sandwiches, and but we'll have bagels and pretzels and biscuits and gravy, and it's going to be, I think, this dynamic duo that in this particular scenario that we're in, it's going to be a way more sustainable and profitable business model.
Wow. So that's fascinating. Most people could probably tell just by looking at me, but I'm a big fan of all those things that you mentioned, pretzels, bologna. But my wife and I used to own a coffee shop. So I always love to see a local coffee shop, people who get an espresso machine and go for it in that way. But this is really interesting to me because part of the fun of going to visit your businesses was how the bakery had its own character, right? And it was very like bare bones. The bread is out there on the rack. It's nice and fresh and hot. And then the restaurant definitely was this elevated experience. But it sounds like you're kind of creating this cohesive, everything coming together type of thing here. That's so there's not going to really be inside dining anymore.
Not here. We are going to basically only allow a certain amount of people in the building at one time. There'll be a specific area outside for people to get in line. Hopefully that will be the case. The ordering system is going to be pretty straightforward, but the whole point of it is that we're not going to have an experience indoors that requires you to take your mask off.
Okay.
So you'll be inside, you'll be masked, and there'll be no reason for you. You're not going to drink something, you're not going to eat anything. You're only mask free when you're outside at your table, and that to me gives us a little bit more control than not. But we are going to have tables inside. Our bar area and community table will all exist, and then hopefully when the mask thing gets released is when we'll start letting people inside again, and that will only just generate more revenue for us.
Very cool. So when you started taking diners inside, was there did you have feelings about safety for you and your staff? People can't wear masks while they're eating and drinking, but also paired with that, did you have customers who were upset about having to wear a mask when they came in and out? And I know you said you didn't want to be the police, but like, is there a balance there? Like, were you able to find that, or did you just realize this isn't sustainable?
We did find good balance with that. We don't get a lot of tourists, and we don't get a lot of that type of crowd. We have a lot of regulars, and the people that find us heard about us through this or that. So there was a lot of love and respect. People were very, 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 very good. It's not something that I'm saying was happening all the time. It was just something that, for one instance, yes, there was one person that didn't want to wear a mask, and it took a good 5 minutes of coercing, this person to put his mask on. And then he put his mask on, it broke, he held it over his face, walked down, sat down at his table, and then this table over here got up to leave, not wearing their masks. And another person got up, walked right past him, and went to the bathroom. And that was the moment in time where I realized we had to make a change, because that one instance made me feel like I had some sort of lack of integrity, or I had some sort of, for me, I felt like that was a failure on my part to let that happen. So that was the one example, but that happened one time, and maybe over a few week period, a few people walking in saying, "Oh, should I put my mask on?" And then you say yes, and they pull it out of their pocket.
Yeah.
So that's another part where it's like, I'm not gonna if you don't make me, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
the hospitality industry should transcend whatever it is, politics, religion, Star Wars, all those things. You can't get too heated on all that. So I think that that this particular thing is hard for us to transcend, because we can't.
Yeah, I think I remember that was one of the rules in your restaurant. No politics, no religion, no Star Wars.
Yes, and
I
a lot
said,
of times we don't let sports in there either.
oh, there you go. But Star Wars is both. Star Wars is politics and religion.
Yes, it really is. It really
But
is.
so that's interesting. What are you seeing in terms of enforcement, like from health department? are they going around like making sure this stuff is going on, or are they relying on you guys to do that?
Well, we have had a couple interactions with a local code enforcement officer.
Hmm.
He just comes in to hand us specific information and did a quick look around, but I have not interacted with anybody as
Hmm.
far as enforcement is concerned.
Okay.
I know that this person was doing some enforcement, but we were already in compliance, so I didn't get any pushback in any way.
Okay.
But I have heard through the grapevine, or a small little sushi restaurant down the street, somebody called the city on them because they were serving food, but it wasn't even true. It wasn't even real. But apparently they've been visited 2 or 3 times. And for me, that's like, okay, well, I was just at the restaurant down the street and they're 3 people deep at their bar right now with a bunch of wasted fucks in there. And now it's like, but this poor little sushi restaurant that's a mom and her 2 sons that aren't even open to the public sitting down are getting harassed by the I've also heard that about a couple other places. The Thai place next door to us, I guess, has had the health department show up 2 or 3 times, and they don't even see people inside. They're doing to-go lines. They have a very systematic system. So for me to watch all this happen in the world and then hear about these little places getting nitpicked, but to me, I know that it's the general public who are holding these businesses accountable. That's where most of the enforcement comes from, is because people are speaking out. There's not people coming and inspecting, and
Okay.
in that way.
It's complaints.
Yeah, that's what my assumption is.
Well, and I know this is anecdotal evidence, but it is troubling that those are 2 Asian restaurants that are being targeted
It
and
is
having
very
people
true.
calling on them. So that's a bummer.
And
Uh,
it could be some sort of, lashing out from these middle-aged white people around here that have
let's
their
be
own.
honest. Yeah. I speaking not specifically about that, but about, dealing with the public. I remember, I think it might have been Memorial Day weekend, or maybe just the first weekend where it really warmed up around here. I think I saw on your Instagram, you put, because there were, the coast was packed, Pismo, a lot big crowds, and I think I remember you posted something like, as a business owner, I'm not like super excited the crowds are out. I'm actually kind of freaked out that, are we going to undo everything we've been working for since March? How do you feel about that? What were you seeing? And are you at all surprised now that we're back in shutdown mode?
No, I'm not. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at the numbers, percentage-wise, it's not as scary as it feels. But when you look at families who are affected, their whole family, like we take it very seriously. But at the same time, 1,000 people out of 250,000 people
Mm,
is not a lot.
yeah.
But that being said, Grover Beach is kind of the eye of the storm. We didn't see a big influx of tourists here because people travel around Grover Beach, not to Grover Beach. So
Mm,
we've always fed local people. Everybody that we've been dealing with has been extremely respectful and treating us well. So we don't see a big influx in that, but I do see all the cases that we have now. 2 weeks ago, it was the 4th of July weekend. It makes sense that that was a part of
wow.
the problem.
Wow. Yeah. And I think SLO County just had its largest single day of cases, like over a
Yeah,
hundred
yeah,
coming
something
through.
like that.
Yeah. And
And yeah, we have 6 or 7 deaths now. So yeah, and people just got relaxed and yeah, going to restaurants was a scary thing to me. I mean, no matter how much you wear your mask, you had a room full of people eating dinner without their mask on.
Yep.
It's inevitable. It doesn't seem, what's the point of wearing a mask if you're not going to wear it 90% of the time that you're in a place? But I do believe that even a few seconds of not wearing your mask or of wearing your mask is better than not at all. So I do agree that every little bit helps, but I do witness this happening everywhere, of rooms full of people without masks on while they're eating dinner and drinking wine. And even if
Yeah.
everybody got up, put their mask on, and then traveled around, it still seems kind of,
It doesn't make
say
much
one thing and
sense.
mean another, so.
Yeah. Everything that we know now, is prolonged periods of indoor, it's like it can hang in the air for quite some time. So especially in a situation where you're eating, when people drink, they naturally get more boisterous, and they're talking louder, they're projecting,
Exactly.
more aerosols, and it's not a surprise, I think, that we're seeing so much spread in Texas and Florida and Arizona, where they reopened first and the bars have been open. And you also see a spike in the age range. People's in their 20s, 30s, and 40s now getting infected at much higher rates, because the infection isn't happening in care homes; it's happening in bars. And
Yeah.
it's happening some in restaurants, I'm sure. But how do you balance it? Is I again, we're buddies on Instagram, so I see, like, not just you're a owner of a restaurant, but you are a passionate foodie who likes to visit other restaurants, support local business. How do you balance, like, for me, even, now I feel like we all need to be even more vigilant than ever, because the cases are rising. But I remember in June, or maybe I think it was late June, or even before that, where, late May, where I drove by a restaurant and you see people inside, and I'm just like, my skin starts to crawl. I'm like, what are they thinking? Like, what, like, why are people doing this? How do you see a balance there? How do you think about it as an owner and a customer?
For me, I do feel like my wife and I need to protect our people by being safer, because we come in and out of this building with 10 or 12 other people all day long. So their safety is in our forefront for sure. Um, as far as, we saw it all and we experienced it all. Sometimes we went in, sometimes we didn't. Um, I'm kind of one of those people that stands on the line. I'm not on one
Mhm.
side or the other, and I think that that there's value in all the information that you get, and I don't feel uncomfortable. I didn't feel uncomfortable going out. I felt like we were being safe where we could. We sat in the right spot. Um, could we have been exposed, and could it have been bad timing for us? Yes, there were a few instances where I'm just like, yeah, well, that table's not 6 feet away, and this guy's back is to me right now. And
Yeah.
sometimes we'd get up and leave, and sometimes we wouldn't. I personally am not too fearful of it. What I'm fearful of is passing it to somebody else that's within my inner circle, and then obviously having to tell the world about that, and it affects my restaurant and business and all that kind of stuff. So we've basically kind of backed off a good amount now, and we're gonna try to dine out a lot less. But that being said, we'll do to go food, curbside pickup stuff probably multiple times a week, because if
Cool.
you don't, these places aren't going to survive. You know.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a balance of community, versus keeping ourselves safe. A lot of people are struggling; they don't have the funds to go out to eat. But those who can, I think I see a lot of people online who are, they're creating groups, they're making lists of their restaurants and their companies. It's scary here in Santa Maria. We saw a couple restaurants have to close down not long after reopening because of staff members who got infected,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It's scary, but it is nice to see community coming together, supporting local businesses. Um, you know, I'm not talking about, don't make a big effort to keep Domino's or whatever
No,
business.
exactly.
Where, find your local, pick those local spots and love, and go pick up some curbside, like at the Spoon Trade in Grover Beach, like in other places. Is there anything else you can think to add, Jacob, about all of this? It's just crazy, unprecedented times. I don't think anybody, you think of how just short amount of time, 6 months ago, what we were worrying about plenty of stuff, but nothing this dire or
Yeah.
earth shattering. It's like a seismic shift, basically.
The only thing I would say is, we're fortunate enough to have this opportunity to maybe switch from one model that doesn't seem to be have a long shelf life, and then another model we have that seems to be the future. So to combine the two, we're fortunate to be able to do that. And I think that people should really think about evolution and think about what's next and how to redesign their business model, because the fine casual model that we had before doesn't seem like that's going to be the first one to go. And secondly, be open, be kind. Everybody's dealing with their own structure out there, and um, uh, everybody's doing what feels right for them, and we shouldn't hold what's right for us other people accountable for what we feel is right for our own personal choices. So we all have our own past, man, and what makes this really difficult is if there's people against you. You know.
Yeah, that's a conversation for another time. The how this has been politicized. I do that. I try to do that in other videos, but I really appreciate you being here with me today for Political Payne. Jacob Town, owner of Spoon Trade, with his wife Brooke. Thanks for being with me, buddy.
Right on. Cheers, man. Thanks for asking me to chat.
You bet.